Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to try to wrap this up today. We might have one more, actually, but in this episode it should go pretty quick. We're going to talk, like this whole series has been, about basics. And today, as dumb as it sounds and as trite as it sounds, you would think everybody knows this, but they don't. And that is how to handle and store your records. Because if you pay attention to the media, social media, and Hollywood, you would treat your records like crap. I mean, look at some of these pictures. Look at how these people treat their records. Brian Jones from the Stones. No. One of my faves. Look here. Paul Weller. Look at that. Records all over the floor. Look at this. Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. Look how he takes care of his records. Sucks. These guys don't know how to take care of their records. And look at this. Rihanna. Who does that? You don't do that. Put your records on the floor and get all hump-based over them or whatever. That's retarded. No. But looky here. Look at Mr. Sinatra. He's doing it right. And Elvis. Look at the respect he has for his records. And looky here, Jimmy. He's really doing it right. It's very important how you handle and store your records, because if you don't take care of them, they ain't going to be worth diddly squat. And when you take them down to your local record shop, or you try to sell them on eBay or Discogs, no one's going to want them because they weren't taken care of. You spend good money on them, take good care of them. They can last 30, 40, 50 years or more. Another thing, don't pay attention to what popular media tells you about drop that needle on the record. Never do that. That's not taking good care of your records. You know how tone arms are nice? Well, actually, your whole turntable is pretty fragile. Lift the needle up nicely. Put it down nicely. When you're finished with the record, pick the needle up, put it back, and take your record off and put it away. That's just another popular misconception of how to handle vinyl. And those two things, of throwing your records all over the floor and dropping the needle on the record, never do it. Never do it. Anyway, let's just talk about how to properly take care of your records. Number one, funnily enough, in handling our records, if you just think back a few years, if you can think back that long ago, remember everywhere you looked, all over the news and all over the TV, they were all talking about wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. It's a very important thing because, believe it or not, our hands have a lot of oil. Our skin has oil. And, you eat your Big Mac for lunch or whatever it is, your cookie and your coffee at Starbucks, you go here, you sneeze, you do whatever, you go to the restroom, God forbid, and then you have all that stuff all over your hands. And then you handle your records. That's a no-no. Step number one, we want to have clean hands when we handle our records. You can nerd out and wear those little white linen or those white gloves and handle records like that if you want to be that big of a nerd. I wouldn't take it that far. But over time, it does matter. Even this morning in the shop, I was cleaning records, and it's funny, you can look at them and you can see thumbprints. You can see spots, obviously, where fingers were, and that's because of the oils in our skin. So it's important to not actually touch the vinyl. And when you are going to handle your records, have clean hands. And it's good for your health, too. Maybe you won't get the flu or COVID or whatever the new craze is. But anyway, let's get down and dirty now. We have clean hands. How else do we handle our records? First of all, let's say this is on the shelf and we pull it out and we're not paying attention and whatever. And, oh, look, it slid out of its jacket. And, oh, my gosh, if you don't have this inner sleeve out, your record is just going to fall out just like that. Okay. Believe it or not, I've had audiophile guys in town come in and tell me they didn't even realize that they should do this. So let's just do the most basic thing when we take care of our records. Okay, we didn't drop the needle on the record, but our record's finished, so put it back, pick our record up off the table, you see? We take it off the turntable. Notice how I'm handling, like this. Handle by the edges and by the label. You can hold the record like that. You don't have to put your hands on it like that. It always makes me cringe when you see DJ guys and stuff just like bending all their records, and they pull the records out and they don't care. They got them dirty ass fingers on them just grubbing it. No. This is if you want to take care of your records. You do what you want with them. If you don't want to take care of them, you don't have to handle them nicely. But it's a good thing to take care of the stuff you spent money on. So handle your records like this. Hold the edges and the label. 45s are really easy because you can just stick your thumb through the label and hold the edge. Like Jimmy. Remember the picture? Look at that. Anyway, take your records carefully and put them back in the sleeve when you're finished or when you're storing them, right? When you put them in the sleeve, the opening on the top, take that, slide it into your jacket this way, where the opening is facing up, right, the top. Put it back in the jacket. Okay, reason being, now, if you pull it off the shelf and you're not paying attention, your record's just not going to fall out. It has a little more security. Look at that. Okay? Because it's in the sleeve and the sleeve is in right, it's not open here. You have a little extra protection. Another thing about that, when you put the sleeve in this way with the open end to the top, right, and you store your record this way, whoop, this end may be open, but we're going to address that in a minute because you're going to want to put it in a plastic sleeve. But if you don't have a plastic sleeve, you put the open end of your sleeve facing up in here, and you shelve it. Now think about that. You're not going to get as much dust and junk and cat hair and dog hair because, yes, this sleeve may be open, but not the inner sleeve. So you have that extra layer of protection from dust and debris and all kinds of junk. Now, I highly recommend taking your plastic sleeve, and again, same concept, where this is open, and this is the top of the sleeve that's open, slide it in like a sandwich. Get it all the way in there, open end on top, and remember, inside the open sleeve is facing the top. Now, you have a nice, secure album packed away in your shelf like that, stored away, and preserved nicely. You don't have really any way for the dust and stuff to get in. Okay, maybe a little bit can come in from the top, but it's not going to get to the record because you have your sleeve closed on the side because it's open at the top. And this is closed on the side. Not only does it preserve your record better as far as dust and debris and hair and everything, it's also just a built-in backup step for safety. When you pull your record off your shelf, look, it's just not going to fall out because it's self-contained. The opening is at the top. No one stores their records that way, right? You have the spines up, you pull it out, you're not paying attention, but nothing happens unless you turn your record upside down, which if you turn all your records upside down, you probably shouldn't be buying records in the first place. So there we have it with our albums. Just basic, simple, common sense stuff, y'all. Just make it as closed and as tight, well, not as tight, but, you know, kind of the best seal possible you can for your record inside your sleeve. Now, I know a lot of people like to do this, store it this way, where the opening of the sleeve is the same as the opening of the record. And that's okay if you do that, but again, you face the possibility when you pull it out or whatever, you can have slippery records that just fall out. So you're really, you want to be careful with that. And no matter what, if that's your preference, just remember the best thing to do, this open part of the sleeve, always store it upright. Put it in, and of course, the tighter the seal you have, the more closed off everything is on your record, the better. So there we have handling our albums. This doesn't want to go in now. Excellent, nice and secure. And also, just to reiterate, little records, little guys, you do it how you like. I just like to make sure as much of the record and the sleeve is covered as possible when I'm storing my records. So you have your 45 here, same principle. The open end, here's your sleeve. We're going to do a little trick here. With albums, the opening is usually on the side. With 45s, a lot of times they're on the top. A lot of imports may be on the side. But if you have a top opening on your 45, turn your 45 sleeve with the opening here on the side. Slide it in that way so that your top is protected. See, there you go. The record won't fall out. Dust can't get in. This is the opening. But your other opening for your sleeve is very well protected. And again, whoop, just put them away. Handling the 45s like we showed Jimmy. Pull it out by the lip. It's easy. You just put your fingers through the hole, whatever. Don't have those clamp hands. You don't have lobster claws. Don't handle your records like you have lobster claws. How about that? That's a good rule to go by, huh? Or a little, just a nice little saying to go by. You're not a lobster. Don't handle your records like a lobster. Let's talk about storing real quick. Again, like we showed at the beginning of the video, never, like in the cool movies, the Hollywood movies, or MTV Cribs, or whatever you want to say, however old you are, never store your records like this. Never. Because over time, they're going to be more apt to warp and whatnot. And you know, like it shows in the pictures and like you see all these scenesters on social media and stuff, like, oh, I just keep my records on the floor and a bottle of beer there and an ashtray because I'm getting high and enjoying life. No. Again, you want to do that, that's fine. But you spill that beer, you dump your ash, whatever you want on your records, it burns through, you stain your stuff, guess what? It's lost its value. If you don't care about preserving them, fine. Keep your ashtrays, your records like this, your beer on top, your coffee, whatever, your cat, it's all good. But we're talking common sense that if you go out and you spend good money on records, and especially if we're collecting records and we want to keep them, and we really love that fix record, we want to take care of it. So, never store your records horizontal. That's a bad idea. And I can't say it enough. Always put your records back in the sleeves and in a plastic sleeve if you have it. We want to store the records up like books. Always store your records up with the spine out. And you don't want to pack them too tight either, because you want, if you think about it, if you put too much weight all crammed in one little space, over time that's going to cause warpage or bend a lip. It's just not good. Your records need to breathe a little. So when you store them, have just a little bit of wiggle room, but always standing upright with the spine out so you can read it and access your records really easy. It's also really good to keep in mind like goes with like. Store your 7 inches all together standing up, your 12 inches, your 10 inches. Why? Because the size isn't going to be awkward. If you have a bunch of 10 inches next to this or a 7 inch and a lot of pressure coming from the other side, you see what I'm saying? It'll bend over. No, it's just not good. And I know it's not something to stay awake at night and think about, but when you put your records away, if you just put like with like, 7s with 7s, 10s with 10s, 12s, or albums with albums, always store them up with the spine out. It's good when you're storing your records too, for sound as well, to store them in wood if possible. Plastic's not that good. Metal's okay. But when it comes to sound, because most people store their records where they listen to music, wood absorbs sound. Wood is going to help your room sound better as well. Plastic isn't going to help you at all. And metal is going to reflect sound. So most people like to have record bins or shelves or whatever you want to say made out of wood. That's a safe bet. Sonically speaking, it's the best bet as well. So we're keeping our records stored up, packed nicely but not too tight, preferably on wood shelves. And it's really important to remember to keep them away from direct sunlight. You want to keep your records away when you're storing them either on the shelves or in a box or in a crate, however you have them. Keep them away from direct sunlight. You may forget about it and go on holiday for a week and your curtains are open and the sun comes shining in. You come home, I guarantee you, when you're going to pull a record out, you're going to have some kind of warpage on it. Not good. Could do a lot worse too. You also, if you live up north or wherever, in Europe or whatnot, you also want to keep them away from heat sources like your heaters and stuff like that. Anything that generates a lot of heat. I don't know anybody who keeps records near their fridge, but hey, if so, or maybe an old TV, I don't know, but you don't want to keep them near anything that generates a lot of heat. Why? It may not happen right away, but over time when you have that heater on, or that fridge, or that old TV, or whatever it is you're using, over time that heat will affect the vinyl, and you will get some warpage. And you'll see it. It's weird. It kind of looks a little pockmarked, like when stuff has been near a heater or whatever. And it's just like slightly bit different than the rest of the record, but it's enough to mess your record up to where you won't be able to play it. So keep it away from heat sources. And believe it or not only the sunlight, but bright direct lights. UV light, believe it or not, can damage your record in a short period of time. Less than half an hour you can ruin a record with UV light. So you don't want really bright lights shining on it either. And by the way, a heat source and lights, if you think about that together, if you have them too near, like in your upper shelves or whatever, however you have it, if you have like a spotlight that's hitting it too close, you might want to put your hand up to see how that heat is transferring there, because you don't want, that is a heat source. You don't want that heat coming off of that spotlight or whatever, hitting the spines of your records or however you have them set up, because you're going to get some warpage there for sure. Another thing, common sense, a lot of people may not think about it though, you want to keep records like books, like magazines and whatnot, in a dry climate, right? You don't want humidity, you don't want moisture. Definitely not, okay? And believe it or not, you don't want it near anything that vibrates too much or whatever. So don't keep it near your fridge, don't keep it near your washing machine, your records. You want it, and for sound wise too, you know, you want a good steady surface that's going to support your records and keep the weight distributed evenly within that shelving or within that crate and whatever. You don't want it to buckle and bend and start putting pressure at weird angles. So that's why we want to do that. I know I mentioned it a second ago, I'll just mention it again. When we do put it in, if you have like one of those IKEA shelves, or you have a 12 by 12 or however big your crate or your storage unit is, don't pack them too tight. You want, one of the reasons why is because you want them to breathe, okay? You don't want a lot of pressure on them, but you also want them to breathe. And this is an interesting thing. If you're going to go away for a while and you're packing your records up, or your wife says, you know, you can't keep them in the house anymore, you got to put them in storage, or whatever the reason may be. But if you got to box up all your records and put them away, just remember, think of them like pets, okay? You want to be able to come home and still see that little hamster or your pets. In this case, our records. So if you do put them in a cardboard box, which isn't, you don't want to keep them in there very long if you do that. But if you do have to box them up, keep them dry, keep them dark. Don't pack them too tight, and I know it sounds silly, but poke a few holes like you would for your little hamster or your little birdie that you get at the pet store or whatever. You want to poke a few holes in there. Why? Because you want them to be able to breathe. If they can't breathe and they're packed too tight, you run the risk of getting mold in there, and again, just the pressure or the heat. You know, if it's in a storage unit, they're going to expand and contract just like anything does with heat. So You want to have some holes in there so air can move around a bit. It's going to keep your records from molding, and it's also going to give just your records a little bit of flex to move around. I know it sounds weird, but you want your record to breathe. Okay, so now we got all that right. We're handling our records right, never dropping the needle, taking care of it, sleeving it right, storing it right. What about cleaning? How do you clean your records? Again, this is personal preference. In record storage, some people like to switch their sleeves and put the rice paper sleeves in. It's personal preference, man. If you're going to be that much of an archivist and put your records in in the rice paper sleeves, go for it. Just take care of it. But anyway, we have clean records. We're storing them up right in the right kind of room, keeping them out of sunlight, keeping them away from heat. You do pull it out and you want to listen to your favorite Fix album, you might give it a little clean. In fact, it's a good thing to clean your records before you play them. It's no big deal. A lot of us have these little babies, these little carbon fiber brushes. Not a bad thing. Helps with static or whatever. You put your record on the table. You can turn it with your hand from the label, your finger, or lift the tone arm so your record spins. Do a nice little sweep with your carbon fiber brush. That helps. Maybe if it's a little more gunky, you have to get a little more into it, like these old style, like disc washer type brushes. They used to come with a little fluid you put on there, or you can make your own home brew, put a little bit on there. And again, this can get really in the grooves. Just turn your record a little bit. Just give it a little preliminary wipe. You know, you can get these on eBay or whatever, I don't know, in your local record shop. But it's good to have some type of brush to do some cleaning with each time before you play. If you have a bunch of junky, gunky records, you might need a little stylish brush that you clean every so often. And you want to keep your records clean. Why? Because it's going to preserve them, but it also works for your equipment. If you have clean records, you have a clean needle. That just means long life for your needle, for your turntable, and for your record. So it's a good thing. Just keep that clean. Now, some people go out and buy D4 fluid or whatever the latest trendy record cleaning fluid is. You can look on Amazon, wherever it is you buy your fluid. You can buy pre-made fluid, or you can make your own home cleaning solution. There's been a debate forever about using alcohol on records. Technically, you can, a little bit, once in a while. But over time, alcohol will eat your record. To what extent, I don't know. I guess it just depends on how much alcohol you use or if you use alcohol. Me personally, I make my own homebrew because I deal a lot with used records here in the shop. And I did some research with alcohol, with this, with that. I ended up doing with what a lot of people said, the natural way to retard mold and to clean mold and dirt and gunk, and that's with vinegar, white vinegar. So I have a bottle I fill up, put your filtered water or your, what is that called? I can't think of the word, like you use in your iron, that water, distilled water. Put your distilled water, good filtered water, most of the way up, like saying a little liter bottle, 9/10 up water. I put about 1/10 of white vinegar and a few drops of photo flow. That's a surfactant that just helps the water to spread through the grooves around your album a lot easier. But you got to make sure you clean all that up. You can't just spray it and leave it, obviously. But spray your record with that. Have a little one of these microfibers or a brush. These work wonders. Spray your vinyl. You can take your microfiber, rub it around good, take another one, a dry one, help dry it off. No matter how you clean your records, just make sure that they're dry, they're air dried before you put them back in the sleeves and store them. You don't want to put them away wet or humid or moist because, again, you're asking for trouble. It's going to attract dirt and you're going to get a moldy record. So we don't want that. Going back to my own home brew, I like the vinegar because it has enzymes in it which naturally retard mold. So you get used records in, or if you have a bunch of records you've had stored for a while, if you clean them with that, it's just a nice way without harsh chemicals or whatever. It doesn't interact in a bad way, if it's diluted properly, with your vinyl. So it'll clean the gunk, it'll clean the mold, but it also retards the mold from growing back. And I don't know if alcohol really does that. Alcohol will clean your record. I don't think it retards the mold, and it doesn't break down with enzymes the same way that white vinegar can for mold. And again, guys, maybe you have the cleanest records in the world. I'm just saying this because a lot of people like used records, and we all have used records around, and sometimes you get a record and it's really gunky and dirty. That's how I would recommend cleaning it. You know, the Library of Congress has their own cleaning solution, and you know they take good care of stuff. They clean all their records with a mixture with Turgitol in it, and I believe you can buy that on Amazon. It's, again, I think it's some sort of surfactant, you know, that helps it spread on the surface. I'm not really clear exactly what that Turgitol does, but you can buy it. So if you want to use what the Library of Congress uses to preserve records for a real long time, you can look that up. Otherwise, just go in the kitchen, like I said, get some nice filtered water, white vinegar, you know, make your own home brew. Some people use Dawn dish detergent. I don't know if I would do that. Just remember, whatever kind of chemical or compound that you use, the more you put it on your record, if it's not totally safe and doesn't jive with your record, it's going to be layer upon layer upon layer of that chemical, of that compound, which obviously is going to affect your sound, it's going to affect your needle, and it may not be a good thing. So as far as taking care of records, I think natural is better. Again, if you want to use a little bit of alcohol, go for it. The name of the game is we're keeping our records clean, stored properly. That's the end game. We just want them to last. We just want this Reach the Beach to be there whenever we're in the mood to hear it, right? That's about it, guys. I hope I didn't sound like a dad or like a teacher at school, but, you know, it helps to just kind of touch base about these things, about how we want to take care of records, how we want to store them, how we want to clean them, and just some basic things that you may or may not have thought of in the way that you sleeve a record, you know, or the way you handle a record, the way you store a record, you know. You just don't want to be a total scenester and leave your records like this, laying flat on the carpet, or stored like that, or out of the sleeve, or whatever. But hey, at the end of the day, it's what you want. If you don't want to take care of your stuff, that's your business. But if you're a nerd and you're collecting and you enjoy records and you want to preserve them and keep them for a while, I hope that this helped a bit as far as cleaning, handling, and storage. It's pretty basic stuff, but sometimes maybe you didn't think about how a spotlight could affect your record or if the sleeve was open the wrong way. But all these things add up to help preserve our records and our turntables, which gives us years and years and years of listening pleasure. And that's why we're all here anyway, right? Because we all love records and we all love music, so we want to take care of it. Guys, thanks for joining me. As always, take care. Get in touch, you know, Noisy Records noisyrecordsmx@hotmail.com, or leave a message here. I appreciate you taking time. And yeah, I hope we learned something. I always learn stuff when I do this, and I hope you did too. Take care of yourselves. Keep on rocking.